Two books I highly recommend. One is a ledger book and one is a profile book. You're going to get those at the stationery store, two leather-bound books. This is your business, treat it like one. Now let's get into the concept of books. People often ask me, what kind of books should I read? I've read many over the years. Some of the ones that are coming out in the last few years I would probably not so highly recommend. Others I'm sure hold a great deal of value, but not being as familiar with them as I should be, I'll just forego those and say these are the two books I recommend every poker player gets. You won't need to write them down, you'll remember them easily. You go to a stationery store, you buy two leather-bound books. One of them is your ledger book. That means you write down every single play that you make. What limits you played, how many hours you played, what your result was. And you have to always remain brutally honest to who? The most important player in the game, you, the one sitting in your chair. In other words, you don't book a few losses and say, well, I'll start writing those down after I get a couple of wins in. No, you always write down every play. And when do you do your books? At the end of the month. It's a long-range proposition. I have had the fortune of never having a losing month. Have I had losing streaks? You bet. Have I had times when it felt like I couldn't win again? You can bet on that as well. But at the end of the month, keeping track of all the plays that I make, I've always come out in the plus column, and that is the object of this game. It's the only game in the world where you keep score with money. Clear and simple. So with that, when people tell me I'm a poker player and I say, how do you do? And they say, well, I'm about even, they're a loser. No one's about even, you're on one side of the fence or the other. And once again, how do you manage to control your own play? By knowing the most important player in the game, once again, who is you. So that's book number one, your ledger book. That gives you an indication as to what limits you're playing, what your result was. So that at the end of the month, if you find every time I play limit, I seem to lose, and I play no limit and I seem to win, or vice versa, you'd know which game you want to start focusing on and which one you need to put away. The healthiest thing you can do for your bankroll is to play your strongest game with your best results. It'll always be that way. Okay, now let's discuss book number two. I call this the profile book. This is the single most important part of the game. The focus and the concentration you keep when you're at the table. It's a game that is loaded with distractions, and the dividends are paid for those that can outthink, outwit, outmaneuver their opponents. You're not going to ever be able to do that if you're not concentrating on the game, and that, ladies and gentlemen, takes work. The job begins when you walk into the casino. Who's the most important player? Always you, the one sitting in your chair. Don't ever forget that. What do you want to know about that player that you should know from your ledger book? When you write your profile book, guess who the first profile should be about? You. Why do you play? How do you play? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What do you need to work on? What do you do well? Those are the things you want to know, and what you also want to be sure you are very aware of is what your track record reflects and the kinds of games that you need to play in and seek out. Thank you for watching. I'm Roger Rod, and I'm your poker expert for Professorit.com.